Sirens blazed through the night sky in a haze of flashing red lights. I slowly opened my eyes, thoroughly confused about what was going on. I was in my car, the windscreen in front of me shattered to bits, my head throbbing something awful. I looked beside me, and there she was, knocked out, unconscious, or worse, dead. Then it all came back to me in a flash. The missteer, the car smashing into the side of the building. I tried to remember what I'd attempted to avoid, which caused the fateful swerve, but my mind entirely drew a blank. Ambulances had already arrived at the scene. There were a couple of paramedics prying the passenger side door loose, pulling her out and placing her onto a gurney. I stumbled out of the car myself, relatively uninjured by the crash, it seemed. Besides the headache, I didn't seem to have any other major injuries. She was rushed to a nearby ambulance in a haze of frantic EMT activity and general medical mumbo-jumbo. I tried to overhear what her situation was, but I couldn't make out any words clearly. That was how I realized my ears were ringing. Probably part of the headache? In a confused daze, I automatically climbed into the back of the ambulance with her. Fighting every throbbing cell in my brain, I attempted to shout a few words of encouragement to her unconscious body. The paramedics probably just assumed that we were together, having been in the same vehicle, and didn't seem to object to me tagging along. In fact, they barely seemed to care or notice that I was in for the ride. Reaching the hospital set off another array of frenzied actions. Hospital staff appeared seemingly from nowhere at the ambulance door and whisked her away through the swinging metal doors before I had a chance to stumble out and onto the sidewalk. Catching up, I saw her being wheeled into a room to the left of the waiting area and rushed in after a group of nurses surrounding her stretcher. Another vague exchange of medical jargon between an ER doctor and his nurses, and from nowhere, this ominous-looking device I understood to be a defibrillator emerged. The doctor moved swiftly, and before they had a chance to clear the room of people, namely me, he vaselined the cold metal plates and zapped her. Nothing. He repeated the action 3 more times before she sputtered suddenly to life. At that moment, all the stress in the world seemed to be lifted off my little shoulders. She was alive. All this time I had been more or less sure that she would have been, but there was always that little voice talking to me in the back of my head saying, "She's gone." But she opened her eyes slowly amidst the hacking and coughing, and eventually they met my relief-drenched gaze. In that moment, my feeling of euphoria vanished. Something about the way she looked at me broke my heart. Why? I didn't know. A single tear escaped her eye and rolled down her cheek. And that's when the doctor turned and walked right through me. When my wife was alive, we always joked that we'd find a way to contact each other if there really was an other side. She'd be the wind in the chimes on a still day, or I'd be the hidden note in the desk drawer that reads, "I'm okay. I love you." She passed away a few weeks ago after a long bout with cancer. It shattered my heart into pieces, but a small part of me was glad that she'd finally found some peace and that her days of suffering were over. Yesterday, I finally found the courage to scatter her ashes into the Atlantic Ocean. as I was sure that, she would have wanted. My hands shook as I pulled the last handful of my wife's remains from the beautiful carved wooden box the funeral home had given me. But I never should have looked inside of that empty box. Crudely carved into the bottom of the box in shaky but deliberate scrawl. Why did you burn me? Feel everything forever. My blood turned to ice as I helplessly watched every speck of my wife float apart into the forever of that endless, cold, deep. So stay scary, wildlings, and make the most of your nights.